All right, Steve. So we are starting this Healthy and Holy podcast. We honestly don't know where it's going to go from here, whether we're going to keep it healthy and holy or rebrand. We're just going to try to figure out how this goes. We're going to learn on the fly. It's going to be ugly bumps and bruises and scrapes along the way.
Yeah.
But hopefully, in time, we will have a decent product for people to enjoy.
Well, after raising 4 kids, I know they all had to start somewhere.
Right.
And they didn't start out running. So it took a long time just to get them to crawl, and it took even longer to get them to stand up and walk. And by the time they learn how to stand up and walk, you want them to sit down. And then you try to teach them how to talk. And then when they start talking too much, you try to teach them how to shut up.
Nice. Well, as you know, I've got a newborn. So you're right. It's not even teaching them to crawl first. Right now, it's just teaching them to roll over. You know what I mean? At first, it was just teaching them to, I don't even know, like just
really just go ahead and say it. You're basically just trying to keep it alive at this point.
That's basically what's happening.
And not go to jail.
Yeah. And then right now, we've got the text message that he's got a fever right now. Yeah. And so I'm kind of on edge. I just got a text that was like, hey, pick this up on your way home. So I can't be too long. Man, I don't even know where to get this. It's going to be fun. All right, cool. I'm going to have to go pick up medicine on the way home and don't even know what I need.
Oh, my God.
So, Steve, you said you had 4 kids and whatnot, but let's talk about the season you're in right now. So y'all got a little snapshot of where, kind of where he really comes from. But really what it is I'm a young father, and he is a more mature father. Maybe mature is not the right word.
I haven't really matured at all. I've grown older. I've grown more rings.
we grow older, not up.
Yeah. I think I plateaued at teenager, and I raised all of my kids in teenager mode. So I raised mine all the way up to a teenage level, and then none of my kids have progressed past that because I never progressed past that.
Until they got away a little bit. Now they're like, wow, I'm becoming a different adult. But be careful, don't make the other ones mad. So they're all doing something. They're doing something.
Yeah, well, they're not going to listen to our podcast anyway.
They might one day, man. This
Alyssa
might be
will.
Something.
Alyssa will listen to it.
This might be something they look back on and be like, dang, my dad didn't think much of me. No, he loves you and he's proud of you.
My kids were awesome.
You know him. He talks junk.
So funny. My kids were just 4 comedians.
Well,
and of course, one's in heaven. I guess he's making people laugh in heaven. So,
well, I definitely hope we get to unpack some of those stories and talk about some of that stuff. But what I do want to know is, like, where are you at right now? Like, what's going on in your world right now?
I am actually kind of sticking to my plan. Once I raised all my kids and got them out of the house, it was at that point I always planned on pouring myself into whatever career I was doing at the time. I've owned multiple businesses, and I'd build them up and sell them, or I'd close them down and sell the equipment, either way. And until I got into truck driving. And once I got into truck driving, I've been in truck driving ever since.
Wow.
And so I raised 4 kids on what salary I made. I refused to work any overtime when they were kids.
Wow.
I'd work my 40 hours and I'd come home. I would not stay 1 hour because I wanted to get home to my kids and play with them.
Did you have any haters from that position that you were like, my kids are worth this to me?
Yeah. There was a lot of guys that, wanted me to stay over and either work for them or stay late and help them with whatever project we were working on. And I wouldn't do it. There was nothing more important. There was no job or no business more important than getting home after that 8 hours and being with my kids. Wow. Because the most important thing to me was to get out there in the yard and play football or play video games with the kids. My plan was I may not have anything extra while they're growing up. They'll live good. Don't get me wrong. They'll live good. They won't go without for nothing. But I refused to. I've figured out my job. Every job I've ever had, I'd figure it out to where I'd work 40 hours and then go home because I knew I'd never get that time back.
Wow.
And so, but I always planned on once the last kid left, that's when I would flip the script and go to working as much as possible. Because right now I work 60, 70 hours a week. No
Wow.
big deal. And because now I can make the money and not feel guilty that I'm not at home because the kids are all grown and gone.
Right.
So now's the time to pour into investments, businesses, side hustle businesses, and, you know, make as much money and trying to be the best employee for who I'm working for right now.
Okay.
You know, I invest in making Steve as good as he possibly can be. The way I invested in my businesses when my kids were small and building those businesses, I invest in Steve now to be the best driver and the best employee and to learn as much about my career as possible.
Okay.
Because I've learned, even working with my coworkers, there's things that I can teach them because I'm a little bit older. I can teach them about how to be a better employee for the company if that's what their goal is. Now, if their goal is to get home every day, then I'll stay late and do all the hours that they don't want to do so they can go home and be with their kids.
Okay.
Because I've had my time. I've had my fun.
Wow.
You know, so if you got kids and they have games and events and things they need to go to, Steve would definitely work for you.
So you pick up those extra shifts,
or
whatever, which is also not a bad deal for you because you're like, well,
that's right. Give it to me, you know.
Give me paid too.
Because, you know, I mean, now's the time to make the money, you know. You got to make hay when the sun's shining.
Right.
And it's kind of good to be at my age and be the best employee that the company has. You know, and that's not just my opinion. You know, that's just what the owner tells me.
Yeah,
so.
Didn't you have a big wig ride with you today?
Yeah, somebody from the corporate actually rode with me because his job is to coach other franchisees, and they chose me out of the whole company for him to ride with me today to learn how I do things and my methods and the strategies that I use to pick up dumpsters and set up my routes. That guy followed me today so that he could take that to all the other Redbox Plus franchisees.
Okay.
Because he's going to be their coach by what I teach him.
And you're like, don't hit a dog, don't hit a light pole, don't
get
stuck.
It's not that. You can hit all that stuff, just don't get caught.
Don't get caught.
That's the most important part.
He's kidding. I know. But I'm the best employee. Y'all hate to see the worst.
Yeah.
He said, I'm the worst. I get caught.
You'll never miss the things that I don't tell you about.
Oh, my gosh. I'll never forget the one time it like rained really hard. We were talking on the phone and you were like, yeah. So I was like, how's your day going? You're like, it could be better.
Yeah.
I'm stuck right now.
I'm up to my axle in mud. We'll have to post next time. We'll have to post some pictures of that.
Oh, you got some pictures too, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, so we could do the bust out.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. So this is where you're at right now. I'm a young entrepreneur. I really say I'm just really good at spending money right now. I'm not making much.
You do have a newborn.
I do have a newborn. We launched our clothing brand the end of last year. We have not been grinding on that as much as we wanted to, as much as I want to. Yeah. I know it's like a wrestle with me right now, but I'm trying to be present, especially like the morning time. Yeah. And that's my best time. So after I've been present and like, I hold the baby and I talk to wifey a little bit or we're making breakfast or whatever, like, I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, yo, I'm tapped, by the end of the, like not the end of the day, but like midday. And so I'm working on things, but not at the same pace.
Yeah.
And part of that is not sleeping the same. I am sleeping. So I'm not going to lie. My wife will get on here one day and be like, he's lying. Yeah. I am sleeping, but it's not the best sleep because it's like on edge.
Right.
Is she going to need something? What's going to happen? And then, sometimes I wake up just when she moves and sometimes I don't, but I still I don't know. You just feel like you're on edge. You're afraid of something going wrong at all times. Something gets too quiet. You're looking around and,
Do you feel like you're more protective now that you have a little one in the house? Like all of a sudden, those dogs like the big dogs that you got, you're like, you didn't have to watch them before.
Don't you didn't have to
watch. Yeah, I mean, you didn't have to watch them before because they had free roam of the house.
Right.
And then like you're training, the baby comes in knowing automatically he rules the roost. period.
Right. And the dogs,
the
dogs, although they seem to be like okay, you're just like they're dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be wise as a new parent. It's a dog.
Yeah.
And the dog gets jealous. I mean, this dog gets jealous over food, and you're pouring food into 2 bowls and setting 2 bowls at the same time. And like, you haven't even started eating your own food, and you're like growling that, So yeah, there's been times like, wifey's been holding baby boy and like pretending to ride on the dog's back. And I'm like, I'm like a little on edge because I don't know how a dog's going to respond to that, who's never had anybody really do that to them.
Right.
And so I'm like, also, you're doing this. He's thinking, this is what I do. I'm riding on the back of the dog. So one day when I can crawl and climb, guess where I'm going to crawl and climb? Where you've put me.
That's right.
And so,
that's right.
there won't be much of it. Whereas like part of me is like, hey, let's keep a little bit of a distance here. But yeah, there's a different, a defense mechanism and offense mechanism too.
Yeah.
I have procrastinated lifting weights and trying to get back into better shape. And now I find myself, constantly, if I have some downtime, I'm busting out some push-ups. I'm trying to do pull-ups, which my pull-ups are horrible right now. I need to get my pull-up game on fleek. Anybody has tips, comment below. But I'm trying to get back into shape because not just because I want to be like Buff, but I want to be a strong example for him on taking care of your body. Especially now, I just turned 38 like a few days ago, and turning 38, I'm like realizing like, whoa, everything is going to start slowing down and it's going to be harder. So it's like I have to be more intentional now than ever before.
Yeah.
Especially if I want to keep up with him. I mean, dude, he's a newborn right now. Are we like at an airport? What just happened?
I don't know what that is. Maybe that's the garage door.
That's the garage door?
Because, we're in the upper room.
We're in the upper room. I was like, whoa, that was a weird sound coming
It sounded like we were in the garbage disposal.
I know. That's what it sounded like. I'm like, guys, we might fall through. We don't know who contracted this, build this house.
I think Tara might be cutting the studs loose underneath us.
She's down there going, just cutting through like, oh, no, we just fall. Like in the cartoons, and they cut the circle around. But
I need a sign that says we're at the hall end of the hall down there that says we're in the frog, the front room above garage.
Oh my goodness, I like it.
We're in the frog.
We need to get one of those recording lights to put out there.
Yes.
To like flip the switch. We're recording.
Yes.
Keep it down. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what mine's will say. Shut up. We're recording.
Shut up, we're recording. Well, all right, Steve. So right now you're positioning yourself for some future goals and some different things. As a believing father, because I do want to bring faith into this, some of this, because I know that that's been a large part of your life. How do you balance like having the grind for a business person, but also saying, hey, I want to keep my eyes on Jesus. Obviously not everybody can sit there and read through 46 books a year and dive in. Like, I know all these guys that are like, I'm reading this book and I just finished this book and I just finished. And that used to be me.
Yeah.
And like, now I'm like, I've been getting in the book just a little bit, and it's a battle because there's so many things vying for your attention and pulling for your attention. Yeah. And so to keep Christ, front and center at times, do you find that to be a struggle? Or
in my career, when it comes to faith in God and following Jesus, you really don't have to make any moral choices as far as truck driving and, faith.
It's not like truck driving.
I mean, it's, you're not going to, sometimes you'll run across a customer that's really in need, or somebody's being put out and you're dropping a dumpster off where people are getting evicted. And I mean, they're not all great scenarios, but I just think of a lot of that as just opportunities to pray for those people.
Wow.
And I burned houses. That's an opportunity to pray for whoever's house caught on fire. We do a lot of work with ServPro. Okay. And they go in after a disaster.
Yeah. And, people have lost all their photos,
exactly.
all their most important things.
When I haul that stuff to a landfill, you're dumping out memories,
Right.
you know, and you just feel terrible. And I tell you what really bothers me more than anything is when a senior citizen dies and their family doesn't want to keep like pictures and heirlooms in the house. They'll just throw all that stuff in a dumpster. All that stuff you collected that you thought was so important to keep, and you carried it from house to house to house because you thought your kids were going to want it one day. I see it every day. We drop off dumpsters at places where someone passed away, and a family comes in and they want the valuable stuff, but what you thought was valuable and what they think is valuable is two different things. They're thinking monetarily, but you're thinking sentimental value. And your kids will end up throwing, I'm not saying everybody's kids will, but most of these people's kids, they throw the sentimental stuff away and just take the valuables. Wow. It's just like if a thief broke in, he's not going to go in there and steal your photo album. Wow. He's going to take your gold and your money. And that's all they're after, the gold and the money. But, because we're actually sitting on top of a garage, slap filled with things that I brought from house to house to house since my kids were little that I thought they would want someday. And they have zero interest in any of it. If I pull out a photo album and say, look at this picture that I found of you guys when you were little, they're like, so what? They don't
take a picture on my phone and there we go. Wow.
No, they'll enjoy it for the moment, I guess. They're like, oh, that's great, But if I see like those cars I have, I collect all these cars, and I probably have.
I think they're awesome.
I think I got hundreds of the big ones like that, but I have, probably a couple thousand of the little bitty ones.
Yeah.
And, my kids don't want any of that stuff. They don't find any value in that stuff. Or if they do, they've never said it anyway. Maybe it's because I told them they couldn't touch it when they were kids. Like, don't touch that. That's a collectible or something.
Right.
But I've never seen them show one bit of interest in that stuff. So,
well, you need to run it by them again, and then if not, you got an adopted one over here.
Yeah, right.
I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
That would look sick in a garage. That's all I'm saying with all the cars.
I'll probably one day be in like Walmart, and there'll be some teenager there, and he'll be looking at cars, and he'll be like, well, "What can I just want to get this one. I just want to get this one." And I'll be like, you know what? Here's my number.
Offload
Come get all these cars.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
That's how it'll be one day, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, it's funny, as someone who has literally lost one whole side of my family, just about, I did have somebody reach out to me on Facebook who is a part of the estranged side of that family. So that's gotten a little crazy because it's like I never knew about them. Yeah. And then now they're kind of in the picture a little bit, and they're like, here's pictures of your great-grandfather, a guy I had never seen a picture of. And now it's like, this was your great-grandfather with your grandmother. I ain't never seen this picture. You know what I mean? And it was like he was erased. And, there's two sides. There's three sides to every story, right? Her side, his side, and then the truth. Or their side, and then the truth. And I don't know, and I don't think we'll ever fully know. Yeah. But I do think it's cool now that there's like a connection there. But it causes me to be a little more sentimental, having lost family members at a younger age. Yeah. As I was like stepping into, I've been, living on my own for a long time, but stepping into a family life, getting married, and now we have a child, and like, I want to be able to share some of the memories of our family, and like, hey, this is how, my great grandfather, who I'm named after, this is how he came to America. Yeah. This is the route that he took, and this is what he did. And we even have in our right when you walk into our foyer, there's a sign hanging up that has his business name. His first business sign was a hand painted sign that he hung outside his house. And like, you know what I mean? Like, of course, back then you could just set up a business at your house, nobody cared. But it was like he had to figure it out when he came over here. He had nobody, knew nobody, and had to figure it out. And so we have a hand-painted sign, and then I have in frames some of the first business cards and advertisement things that he sent out to get business. And I'm like, this guy was ahead of his time. Some of his stuff is actually clean even by today's standards of design. And it further burns in me a reminder, like there's entrepreneurial, something in your blood. Yeah. My mom's an entrepreneur. and she's done all kinds of crazy things. And somehow that woman will just fall into gold. I don't even know. You know, she'll start a business and it'll run. She'll be breaking all the rules and she'll try to, you know. Yeah. But anyways, like I find myself being more sentimental because of losing those people. Like I look for those photos. I look through those photos, and those photos matter to me.
Yeah.
When my grandmother passed away, it was a Chinese checkerboard. It was a game we used to just play.
Yeah.
We would set it on the coffee table, and we'd play with the marbles. And my family wanted all kinds of stuff, and I'm not judging them. They wanted these different things. This. I said, who wants Chinese checkers? And people were like, I want that. Yeah. Man, that was like how I remembered her.
Yeah.
And so I remember Clava and I were playing Chinese checkers one night, and we were like laying in the bed playing it, and like just kind of shifted, and all the marbles go rolling off. And I said, well, that never happened on the coffee table. You know? But I mean, like the important things, those things are important to me. Those memories, that memorabilia, that's like it mattered. Man, I'm holding on to cars that my dad started building. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it matters. It matters.
Where do you think faith comes in? Because I know in the Bible it says you store up your treasures in heaven, and I think a lot of times. Your dad held on to that stuff for you. I'm holding on to stuff like this for my kids because I hope one day that if something did happen to me, that the first thing they would think of that I have that they might want was like, they would ask Tara, what are you going to do with Dad's cars?
Right.
Because I have some autographed stuff by Dale Earnhardt that I took my kids to meet him and they got autographs, and I still have those cars, but will they even ask for those things, or will they just want something of Dad's, or will they want my pictures, all the pictures they have of me? Is that something they would want? It's kind of. I know you've probably heard the story of. It's about an old man died, and his son had passed away years before he did. And at the old man's funeral, man, it was very wealthy. And all of his family members showed up and friends showed up to see what they were going to be inheriting, or to hopefully learn what they were going to be inheriting. And they were all wanting all these different possessions. But the man said the only thing, I know what it was. They were going to have an auction to auction off the man's things. And when the auction began, they brought out a picture of the man's son. And they didn't know it, but whoever bought the man's son's picture got everything, but they didn't know it. So they were hoping that nobody wanted to buy the picture. So the picture went unsold. And then they read the stipulation that if you didn't buy the picture of the man's son, you couldn't buy anything else that the man had. And so they ended up reading this thing that, his son was his most valuable. He considered his son his most valuable possession in the world, which really wasn't a possession, but and the fact that nobody wanted a picture of the son, that he refused to give anybody anything. He ended up giving it to charity instead. But
so how do we carry into that mindset?
How do we do that? I mean, what like, because if and I know this is going to sound awful, but
you're right.
And I'm okay with looking awful most of the time. But like when my son died, I knew who I thought we were all close to and close with in the family and in the friends categories. But I'll be honest with you, whoever didn't show up at my son's funeral, they may have thought that I'd never noticed, but I noticed. I noticed because I'm the one who preached his funeral.
Wow.
And I was looking out at that congregation.
Wow.
And I know who was upset. And because anybody that loved my son came to see his funeral. They meant enough to be there. It was a Saturday. They knew 2 weeks ahead of time.
Right.
They could have been there.
Right.
But for anybody that didn't show up, that after the fact, oh, I'm so sorry I lost your son, or you lost your son. It hit different than those that actually were there.
Yeah.
People I thought would be there at my son's funeral wasn't there. never messaged, never texted. But then my old friends and family from church from years and years and years ago, every single one of them showed up. People that I thought didn't even think twice about me or my family, hadn't heard from in years.
Wow.
When they found out my son died, they beat a path to my door
Wow.
to just hug on me and love on me and spend time with me because they saw the value, of my son.
Yeah.
And for those people, I'm eternally grateful, and I call them my true friends.
Yeah.
Because if you can't show up for a friend's son or child that passed away, I just don't know what to say. And then people say, well, I just didn't know what to say.
Right.
You don't have to say anything. I didn't speak to half the people that were there at that funeral. The fact that they were there was enough for me. Yeah. That was all you needed to do.
So what you're saying is your presence matters.
Yeah, your presence matters.
Especially in those moments.
I needed somebody to mourn with.
Yeah.
And the valuable people to me showed up and mourned with me. Yeah.
And I'm sure if there's extenuating circumstances, there's things that, there's probably a little more grace for.
Yeah.
But there are people that you're like, there was no, you can't help people who work that 9 to 5 and nobody lets them take off of work or what, it's how they make their livelihood. Those are the people I would hold, to the same standard as people I know who can be free and show up. Right.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I was selfish.
Yeah. And it's hard not to be, man.
It was a kick in the gut for a lot of people that I thought would be there. Yeah. Family members I thought would be there.
People that you thought would make no matter what it was.
Yeah.
It's funny, like when my dad passed away, it's part of my story, my dad passing away unexpectedly, is our church was packed. My dad was not saved whatsoever. Yeah. He would tell people about themselves. He would say, he would say some stuff. He was a little bit on the wild side at times. Yeah. He was pretty tame. He wasn't like a big buff scary dude or anything, but he just really didn't give a rip. He just let it, he'd let it rip. And and it was just amazing because what you saw is what you got with him. Yeah. And so when people showed up, it really, I don't know, it hurt me a little bit. Yeah. Because the world showed up, better at times for us after my dad passed than the people I journeyed with for 10 years.
There's an old episode of Little House on the Prairie where this old lady was complaining that all of her kids never visited her, never wrote to her. And so she faked her own death. And she had, the word went out and all of her kids showed up at her funeral. And then as the funeral was over with, everybody was getting ready to go inside and go eat. She come out with a black, she was actually there at the funeral covered in black, so nobody knew who she was. But when she lifted her veil, they realized, Mom, you're alive. And at first they were like, oh, it was a miracle, that Mom was alive. And then all of a sudden they were like, wait a minute, Mom tricked us. And they all turned on her. They were mad. Wow. And she had to give them the old, come to Jesus speech. Like, is this what it takes for you to visit your mom? Ooh. Do I have to die for you to come tell me how much? Because they would all stand in front of the casket and talk about how they love their mom and they missed her and they wish they'd do anything to spend one more day with her, And she reminded them because she stayed close to the casket. Wow. But the casket was empty.
So we were about to just talk about possessions, and we actually ended up talking about presence.
Yeah.
We started talking about like how people's presence matters, right?
That's right.
Like, don't lie at the funeral about how much you love me.
Yeah.
If you didn't do life with me when I was here.
That's right.
And so I would encourage, if anybody does watch this, if we do post this, I would encourage anybody who's out there. You may have broken relationships, broken friendships, broken family relationships. It is worth it to attempt to reconcile. Yeah. It is worth it to attempt to make things right. Yeah. To tell your loved ones, you may be mad as can be, but you can still say, hey, I am in total disagreement with whatever you're at right now, what you're doing. I just want you to know I love you.
That's it.
And nothing changes that. Yep. Now, that may mean I can't be in proximity to you right now, but I do love you. and you do matter to me. And I wish
I will
that,
show up for you.
and I will show up for you.
Yeah.
And if you absolutely needed me, I would be, I would be there, because there can be a day and a time when that door shuts and it's too late. It's too late. Woulda, coulda, shouldas are gone, Well, I didn't think we were going to go straight into that, but here we are. We'll probably talk about this again.
That's where the road took us.
Yeah. And we'll probably talk about this again. And once again, we're going to learn some things. Feel free to adjust the mic as needed. If you need to move back and you feel like it's more comfortable, you can always adjust the mic and tighten it and play with it.
When I do my solo, I'll just grab the mic and just...
Whenever I'm singing, that's when you're gonna know.
When I'm singing my song.
But I do want to address at least what you said about the storing up things, because I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
Right. Like we literally have 4 classic cars in storage right now.
And how much is enough?
And how much isn't? And honestly, like I've got engine parts. I've got all this stuff, and it's just it's weird. Because it's okay to have that as long as it doesn't have you.
Yeah.
But it still at times has me.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm sitting here trying to figure out, how do I get it up here? Because I enjoy working on those cars. I enjoy doing those things. They're cathartic and they're, healing. My dad was really into the cars and stuff. I didn't get into it until after he passed. I wanted to be into it, but he just wasn't really the teaching type or any of those things. And so, it's something that I'm hoping, because I'll tell you this right now, I'm not going to go buy that stuff nowadays.
No.
It's too expensive.
Yeah.
And so I own it free and clear.
Yeah.
And it only costs me a little bit to hold on to it right now. And so if something were to really shift and it was like eating us out of home, I'd probably say this needs to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place where, when it comes to those possessions and those things, there comes a place where some of this stuff's like enough's enough.
Yeah.
There are some cool things that we do have. My dad had a wooden hand built Chris Craft boat. Mm-hmm. It needs a lot of love now.
Yeah.
But it's still there in its entirety. Yeah. And it's, once you go and throw some hands on it, it's going to be a great boat. Yeah. So that may be something that I get to do with Zane, and we take it out on a lake.
I think, and sharing that with him is one of the most important things, because you're telling him a lot about yourself when you share that time with him, and say, not only is this important to me, son, but actually what's more important is the time we're spending together with this. It's like the dad that takes his little girl fishing. It's not about catching fish. It's about spending time with her and teaching her something.
Right.
That and making memories with a child like that.
Right.
And once and I hated a lot of times that, especially looking back, that I told my kids not to touch these ridiculous cars, like they were going to be, the bee's knees one day. But because in truth, they're just cars. They're just cheap little metal toys that a grown man is collecting.
Until you find that one is worth like $100,000, and you're like,
well,
look,
I've never
son.
found that one. I've never found that unicorn.
Right.
But, I wish I would have been smart enough in my younger age to teach them how to get into a hobby like that.
Yeah.
Which,
like
they had hobbies as far as, playing football and, extracurricular stuff. But they never got into that kind of silly stuff. But, it was what they liked to do. And so we spent a lot of time doing what they wanted to do. Yeah. And as long as they let me play with them, I was cool with it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that was the most important thing, because they knew we may not have extra money to go out to eat all the time.
Right.
But they know Dad's going to be home by 4:00 and we're going to be out there in that yard. As soon as homework's done, we're going to be out there throwing that ball and spending time and riding go-karts or doing something dangerous.
That's incredible. I do want to say to anybody who is watching this, or, if you're joining us, hey, comment below like some of your favorite memories with your parent.
Yeah.
With your father, with your mother. Comment like the moments that mattered to you that you may not have realized. Maybe you did realize it, maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this really matters to me now that I'm in this stage of life, or now that I'm older. It was funny that I went into youth ministry as someone who came from a broken home, kind of broken relationship with my dad and my mom at times. And there's no love lost, no hate or anything, just different seasons of life, different places people were at. And when I was in youth ministry, I had the broken home kids and I had like the healed home kids. And not that their parents were perfect. Yeah. But man, there was such an intentionality in the pursuit of how they, tried to do life with their kids. The moms would set aside time and they would go do little trips with them. And, Clava recently went to the Journey concert with her old boss and then her daughter, who at the time, is a college student. And she's like, it's your birthday and we're going to go to Journey. And like her mom's going to Journey because she likes Journey. Yeah. And I'm guessing her mom likes it too, but I'm just saying not at that level. You know what I mean? And it's like they went and they had a great time. That girl is going to have that memory forever that her mom put everything to the side and said, we're going to go have a celebration of who you are on this night. There was one time we did a birthday party at like this, it was like a restaurant that had video games and board games and like we're playing like Mario Kart or something, waiting on our food to come. And I mean, it was just this great moment. It's called the Chromatic Dragon in Savannah. It's closed. Wow. So shout out to anybody who knows what it is, but it's closed now. The OGs know what I'm talking about. If anybody watches this and they know, but it's interesting how from the outside looking in, I saw parents who did model cars with their, one dad did model cars with his son. His son went on to be like, to detail cars was his job as far as like when he was in high school, but he wasn't detailing mama's minivan with bubble gum and whatever. Yeah. His dad painted cars and worked on cars and whatnot. So the cars this kid was detailing were Porsche 911s. Yeah. They were clean already. Like all this guy wanted you to do was just freshen her up a little bit, you know? So he's like, he's wiping down something that's basically garage kept, but I got to see the difference of when a dad was involved. Yeah. Or when a mom was involved. And so as we're sitting here at the table and you saying like, I made sure I was at home. I was home by 4:00. Yeah. I made sure like it wasn't about getting those extra hours and climbing this ladder because the only ladder that matters is I was climbing an influence in my children's lives. And obviously there's going to be a time where they don't want to spend time with you. Yeah. And that time came. And you're like, and I know for at least 3 out of 4, that time is now. They would rather do other things. But I can say I remember one time was a very special event because you never know how close kids are paying attention to what you're doing, and if you don't know your kids enough, if you don't spend enough time with your kids, you won't know what's important to them. And I have my son. We played football together every day. We played games. We were really into the Monday Nitro wrestling and, SmackDown and all those things. We done all those things. When he was 4 years old, I was giving him a bath one night, and I did not realize that bath time was the part that he loved most out of the day. Wow. And we had done so many things all day long, but I was giving him a bath. And because if I didn't bathe him, he wouldn't clean himself. He'd come out just the same way he went in. He would dip real quick.
He'd have wet hair, but it still smelled like we've been playing outside playing football.
You're over there like, look, bro, I'm not Jesus. We're not baptizing you, and all of a sudden you clean again.
he must have really enjoyed that day, because when I was giving him his bath, he said, and I'll never forget this because it's one of the most important things. This is my son Tyler. If Tyler ever watches this, he said, Dad, I wish that I could stay my age right now and you stay your age that you are right now forever. And I could always be your son and you would always be my dad. I was like, well, son, I'll always be your dad. He said, no. He said, I want it to stay. When I knew what he meant, he wanted it to stay just like it was in that moment. He was in what's called in the moment. He was in the moment. Wow. Dad was like giving me 100% attention, taking care of me, and he was feeling so much love. That was his way of expressing what meant the most to him. Wow. It wasn't that we played football earlier. It wasn't that we wrestled earlier. wasn't that he, I cooked whatever meal it was he liked that night. And, but it was the fact that I was bathing him and taking care of him. And he was looking at me in a way that you don't really know. You can't really put it into perspective unless you can think back on a time when you were with one of your parents and you like captured the moment.
Yeah.
Like I know that mom loves me because she's doing this right now. Or dad's doing this.
Wow.
And later on, he would pick at me, and say, I knew Dad loved me the most because he yelled at me the most while I was holding the flashlight. That's not true. That's not true. He was always on video games. He never held the flashlight.
That was lies. I needed him to hold the flashlight.
No matter what he says, he did not hold the flashlight.
He did not. If you held the flashlight for your dad and you know exactly what he's talking about, hold the flashlight.
Yeah. I would never trust him to an important job like holding the flashlight.
Wow.
Nah, he was a good kid.
Never trusted him. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's like, hey, can you shine it over here? Where's over here?
Yeah, and he's looking at his fingernails with the thing.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. Or over there making campfire faces.
So one of my favorite memories with my dad. And I really wish I could have said something to him about it further down the road. But we had a pipe burst or something, and our house was flooded when we woke up. All right. My dad, who's a contractor, he was like, you've got to be kidding me. And so he goes to the street, he turns off the water, he comes inside, he starts kind of like, sloshing the water out. He grabs a shop vac, and he's vacuuming it out as good as he can. And he says, you know what, forget this. This will be here when I get back. Let's go on the river.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
He said, let's get the boat. Let's go get some chicken let's go get some chicken from Publix. Yeah. Let's go. It's like all these things. Of course, I don't actually it wasn't Publix. Probably Winn-Dixie back then because Publix hadn't quite come in. But I always remembered the Publix chicken too because that stuff was good. But he was like, let's go get some fried chicken and some stuff, get some drinks, and we're going on the river.
Yeah.
And so my dad wasn't like the most fun guy all the time type of deal, but on the river is where everything didn't matter.
Yeah. He'd come alive.
And he just wasn't the dad I had throughout the regular days. He'd be relaxed. He would kick a ball or throw a football. Not a lot, but he would be just a different guy.
Let's segue. Let's use that as a segue into our next episode and maybe we can talk about next time of like that was your dad's passion. What is our passion? What is your passion? What is my passion?
I'm trying to find it.
And it's the thing that we care the most about that we will stop at nothing to do.
Wow.
Just like Jesus stopped at nothing to get to that cross. You know? And what will you sacrifice everything for? What is your passion? Because I think kids will notice your passion more, and they will remember what you were passionate about.
Yeah.
And I see it in my son, Tyler, the same son, because he has worked out his businesses and his lifestyle to where he can be at home with his kids while he's young and they're young. He's doing exactly what I did.
Wow.
He's not working any overtime. As a matter of fact, he's barely getting the 40 hours, but with his military retirement and with the side businesses he does,
wow,
and his wife's work, he is able to pour into his kids every single day. Doing the same thing.
See, you made a deeper impact than you realize.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I never thought about it before, but yeah. He
don't even know why.
As much as when he was a teenager, I was the last person he wanted to be like.
Right.
He's just like me, pouring into his kids all day long, every day.
Take that as a W,
and
man.
Nothing is as important as taking his kids to school in the morning himself and picking them up in the afternoon.
Wow. That's definitely something we're going to have to come back to. And I would also say not just you're passionate about, but where do you find purpose?
Yeah.
Because purpose will determine where you're passionate. When you're living on purpose for purpose.
Does it line up with what God wants for your life?
Ooh, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. So this was just a trial episode. This is just us.
We unpacked a lot of boxes.
We unpacked a lot of stuff, and there may be some things we need to dive into further.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is we actually want to open this up to anybody who's watching. Feel free to comment below. Your comments not only boost us in the algorithm and help us get views, it helps us figure out how to direct this content. Because we're going to be honest with you. We are doing this having no clue where we're going to eventually go.
And he has a filter. I do not have a filter a lot of times. So I will probably say things that he has to edit that you may or may not get to hear. So.
Was that scratch?
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I don't know if it came through or not.
But you're going to get the raw truth on both sides, though, from him and me. But I will tell you, as a father, and at 53 years old almost, that you're going to get to see warts and all.
I was trying to do the little record scratch. I don't know if that came through or not.
That sounds more like a rat fart.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rough. Hey, look, sounds like a rat fart. Look, I don't know what we're doing. Hey, look, we're trying to figure this thing out. There's gonna be some learning curves. Hopefully, we'll improve as we go. We'll mess with levels and stuff, and we'll continue to pick it up from there. But y'all, follow this Healthy and Holy channel on Facebook. Right now, I think it's going to just be, raw conversations. I don't know exactly what we're going to call it, but I like that we can just sit here and we're going to talk real life. And then also there's going to be some little wrestles with faith and things like that, and how to live out our faith while we're trying to walk, in the world, not of it, and you're going to find out that we make more mistakes than we probably want to admit.
Yeah. And none of y'all are perfect either, so we'll have a lot in common.
Well, the first perfect person, please comment below, I'm perfect.
Exactly.
Sorry, there was only one.
Yeah, that's right.
And his name is Jesus.
Amen to that.
But no, for real, thank you for anybody who's going to listen to this or who does listen to this. If it works.
Yeah, we may have not have recorded anything.
We don't even know if it worked yet. So we know we have the onboard audio, which is not great at all, but I could also set out that little Rode mic and we could have just one more backup of our voice just in case. And there's a way to do that. And so we're learning, we're growing, and we're going. And so y'all follow us for some more content. Once again, comment below if there's things that were speaking to you, things that were going on that you really enjoyed. I'm probably going to cut this part and put it like at the front of the video. Comment below if there's anything that you're like, hey, dive into that. Talk more about that. Because right now we're literally going with no agenda.
Yeah.
It's just,
there's no notes.
There's no notes. There's no nothing. We just wanted to come here, talk real life because we've been through some real things. Yeah. And just real quick, the way we met was actually through a grief class.
Yeah.
Where I sat at a table partially because number one, I had lost my father and I also lost my pastor right in that time frame. But I lost my father and then I continued doing ministry. And then Steve had lost his son, and although we had processed it and to an extent, there's still a lot of things that it was like, wow, this is bringing a healing, and us just being at the same table and just talking and going, I really don't know what my dad thought in his heart of hearts. You know what I mean? I don't know if maybe he felt like I really regret not being these things, or maybe he really there was something that wrestled and that's why he kept his distance, is because he felt like such shame, guilt, whatever. Maybe that's what kept him from relationship. I don't know. And I never will know. But what I do know is this, that God can use our pain for a purpose. And that purpose can be to speak to other people who are in that pain, to let them know you're not alone, and that there are people who've walked through hard things, maybe not as hard as you, maybe harder than you, but they've walked through hard things, and it lets you know that you're not alone. And it's okay to not know, to just not even really be sure of how to process it or whatever.
Yeah.
And to eventually, hopefully, begin to move towards a way of talking it out, talking about life, and maybe approaching things that have happened in your life from a different perspective of how can this shape me into a better person today?
Yeah. And stop blaming God for the bad things that happen in our life. Come to an understanding that You know, he only wants what's best for us, but he never promised us a rose garden.
Shoo.
You know.
But he did promise there would be rain on the just and the unjust.
That's right.
That means the righteous and the unrighteous.
That's right.
And so we've all had rain, and we're going to have more rain. As long as we're alive and kicking on this earth, there is going to be troubles. There's going to be hard times. But we know we're not alone. For those who are believers, we are not alone. We have a God who is with us, who's for us, who does not leave us nor forsake us. But for those of you who do not know him, I pray that you would know him the way we do, because if you only knew what he's done for me.
Yes, Lord.
My soul cries out, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus, for saving me. No, seriously, thanks for joining us. Once again, comment below if there's certain things that stuck out to you from this episode. Let us know what you think we should talk about. We're not coming in scripted right now. We're just trying to figure it out. We're figuring out the equipment, and we're just trying to chat. We're going to keep it under an hour. So we're at 50 minutes. So I think we did pretty good.
We did good.
Thanks for joining.